welcome back. With that, we move on to a very interesting panel discussion titled New Paradigm of Cybersecurity for the New Normal. And it's an honor and privilege to welcome and introduce the members of this esteemed panel. Abhishek Bansal, Head Non-Financial Risk and Chief Information Security Officer at Max Life Insurance. Gagan Singla, Chief Digital Officer and Chief Marketing Officer at HDFC Securities. Manish Sehgal, Chief Information Security Officer at AU Small Finance Bank Limited. Rajesh Kumar, Technology Head, Enterprise and Government at Juniper Networks India. Rajesh Thapar, Chief Information Security Officer at Axis Bank. And Manoj Srivastava, Chief Information Security Officer at Future Generali India Insurance. Manoj Srivastava is having some technical problems with regards connection at his end, and the minute that is sorted out, he will join us. This panel discussion on cybersecurity and the new paradigm will be moderated by Karthik Shinne, Partner Cybersecurity, Ernst & Young. Karthik, the virtual floor is all yours.
Thank you, Evan, and good afternoon, everyone, and very excited to be part of this panel discussion. The panel is titled Proactively Detect and Act on Cybercrimes and Ransomware Attack. I think that's the hot topic these days, given the number of incidents that we've been facing in the financial services sector primarily. So what we are going to do is really, I'm really going to, pick your brains on, some of the trends that we've been seeing, and most of you, I've interacted with you, and we have an ongoing relationship in terms of the work that we do with each other. But having said that, I think what's important for this session would be to also, for all of us to understand what's your thought process on some of the latest trends that are shaping in the industry, along with some interesting insights that you might have, along the topic that we are discussing for today. So looking forward to discussing those topics with you. I have some, points that I've put together, but more than happy for you to, put in your additional insights, and more than welcome if we can, make this session interesting with cases and examples, and sort of that kind of a discussion. So thank you, everyone. Thanks once again. And maybe I'll quickly go around the room, and Rajesh Thapar, if you don't mind, I'll start with you. And I'll start the discussion with, the theme in mind around cybercrime and ransomware. And you've been in the banking industry for quite some time and handling some of the biggest portfolio from a security perspective. So just wanted to, hear from you in terms of, the kind of advanced attacks that you have seen in the banking sector. And if you can just throw some light on what you have actually seen, from an attacks perspective in banks. Ransomware is just one example of it, but would love to know your thoughts and kickstart this discussion. Rajesh?
Sorry, I was speaking on mute. I'm sorry for that. Yeah. While we may call it as advanced threats, advanced crime, advanced attacks, but I still believe, and it's my personal opinion, that it's most of the time the compromise of basic controls. It's the basic hygiene which actually goes wrong, right? So it may be at a user layer, it may be at a perimeter layer, it may be at an asset layer, wherever it is. So if the basics are compromised, the attacks will happen, and sophisticated attacks, the only thing which we create with all these defenses is a deterrent. right? So more set of basic primary controls and the secondary controls we put in place. So we just ensure that the basic threats are avoided. Sophisticated attacks can still get through, and with all the effort and resources that are available today with the cyber crime syndicates, so it becomes really a challenge at times. While the prominent one, which is there in the industry at large, is ransomware. It keeps coming up. Data exfiltration, another one. Ransomware with data extortions are there. But more meaty stuff is around looking for money when these attacks happen. So ransomware, we all have come across incidents, not to name in any organization per se, but we know a lot of case studies that are there around ransomware, and how does what happens in a case of a ransomware, why does it get compromised? Primarily, many a times it get triggered from a phishing mail. It may get triggered from a vulnerability on the endpoint which probably was unpatched. Not to really give credit, but it actually caught a lot of focus after WannaCry, to be honest. I mean, and WannaCry itself was one of those ransomware cases which was mapping to a vulnerability which was available, or which the patch was there for 2 months old, but the patching was not done. And believe me, it was only when the WannaCry issue came up, and we were all fortunate that it happened over a weekend. We all patched, everybody patched their systems over a weekend. Over Saturday and Sunday, every IT organization and InfoSec organization across the globe was working to patch the systems which were usually felt to be unpatchable, or we need downtimes, and we had all those issues. So basic control was there, which was leading to these kind of attack vectors. The change now is also seen as with the ransomware. The issue that we see is that it captures data before it encrypts. So that is a trend that we are seeing today in these sort of crimes. We have seen in cases where the data exfiltration happens, and then he encrypts you and probably asks for a double ransom, or ensures that. So that's another threat vector which is there. Third vector which we see in advanced threat cases are around DDoS and all that, which keep on happening, may not be materializing, but there are threats which keep coming. Sometimes it comes with an extortion as well. Boss, I will launch a DDoS attack on you if you don't pay me a particular amount. I mean, so which is again a phobia. You work in an organization which has to be up all the time. So how do you take something like that? So whether there is something to be plugged on that, you would definitely be considering those technical controls, administrative controls, and the like. But where do you end it? It's again a challenge. But my main focus is that on these advanced threat vectors, the technologies have evolved in the organizations, and few of the technology which I feel can be looked at and have actually helped most of the many organizations to be creating a deterrent layer. Is EDR is one, primarily, not to name any product per se, but EDR has been one. Second thing which I feel is important in detection mechanisms of these advanced threat attacks is keep looking at your SIM, keep looking at your SOC. The next gen word looks good, but next gen is only on the configuration of your rules. I mean, how quickly can you fine tune your rules? So are your rules capturing anything that's coming up? So every 3 months, are you seeing the threat landscape? Can you define your thresholds? Can you reduce your false positive? While you may have a SOC, but if it's giving a lot of false positive, you'll never know when things are going wrong. So maybe decoys, sensors, lateral movement restrictions are some of those protection layers that one need to put in before we get compromised. We'll cover up rest of the things primarily, not to eat others' time, but say more on preventive layer. We definitely need to identify the risks, put it on a preventive layer, but we definitely need to identify the deterrent. How do we detect it? How do we respond to it? And how do we recover it? And maybe over the course of this panel discussion, we will touch upon those elements as well.
Absolutely, Rajesh. In fact, we'll dive a little bit deeper into what some of these solutions are, and very keen to know. And I'm sure our audience is also keen to know as to how do you detect some of these. But let me come to Abhishek. And Abhishek, Rajesh mentioned a very key point in terms of the data before getting encrypted is actually exfiltrated or sent or captured. So that when you demand for a ransom, or when they demand for a ransom, the ransom actually has a component which says, I will reveal your data or leak your data out to the public, right? So on those lines, are there some measures which organizations can take, and particularly, initiatives that CISO can take, and Rajesh touched upon some of those, to kind of easily detect some of these activities that are going on in your network, or before even the ransomware completes its activity of encryption routine, actually detect some of these mechanisms of exfiltration and C2 communication in that sense. We just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Sure. Thank you, Karthik, for that question. A very warm welcome to fellow panelists, and I'm very privileged. Thanks, Economic Times, for having me in this session. I couldn't agree more with what Rajesh mentioned. I think this is almost unequivocally. I mean, we share the same voice across. When we talk about these ransomware and trends, and double extortion is something which has come in as a prevalent threat. Whereby it's no longer only a proof of pudding where they will capture your data upfront and they will tell you that I have only encrypted you, and they'll give you the keys once you have kind of taken ransom from you. Right? So that is coming as a threat because people are also becoming, let's say, for example, much more mature. I mean, as ransomware is getting evolved, more and more organizations are getting actually breached with this malware and the crypto locked in one way or the other. Organizations have started spending a lot on a robust backup mechanism. Whilst there are nuances over there, how do you do backup as well? Because backup is the only solution which helps you as a safeguard against ransomware. But when it comes to, say, for example, set of controls, I will give you a control as well. Certain things which we are doing, but I'll also try and complicate the problem. Something which gives shivers, considering what's the latest trend. I kind of read almost, I think, a fortnight back. So what can be done? I'll come first because that's your straight question. Is something right? Data exfiltration, when it is said, it is something like at least few terabytes of data moving out. And there are examples where few terabytes of data have moved out, and people claim they have a SOC, they have a knock, and under your nose data is actually moving out, and you can't do much about it. Right? So it is all about if I may say, looking into the right risk indicators. I mean, is somebody watching that the data is moving out? How it is being looked out? So kind of rules you create as part of your SOC knock, the integration between the two in terms of what kind of network traffic is being sniffed into. When something is moving out, makes all the more sense. But it becomes tricky, which I said the second part of it, which gives me shivers as far as the trends. Nowadays, it is there used to be two major buckets, right? Which any CISO is handling and is continue to handle actually for the times to come. One is around basically something which comes in from an external hacker, somewhere where you don't have any control, somebody who is completely outside your network, no credentials, nothing doing. He typically picks up, as what Rajesh mentioned, about the basic controls, loopholes which are there in your perimeter and likewise. Second is your insider. And the combination can be lethal, and and I'll just share this for this forum. There are hackers who have approached, disgruntled employees or malicious. I'm not saying, from our organization, but this is something which I read, and it's getting actually surfaced in some part of Western countries. They're saying that they will share part of the ransomware proceedings provided they follow some of their instructions. So it is somebody who's having legitimate access. They'll go to GitHubs and likes. They'll download a malware file, insert in where they like, and that's how they'll be, be given the part of proceed. So managing a combination could be very lethal. And this is something where people will have legitimate access. So monitoring with the existing solutions, you may have advanced analytic solutions or SIEM. It is going to be a tricky affair. So it will keep us all on toes.
Absolutely, Abhishek. Even I was, pretty shocked to see that new modus operandi of approaching internal disgruntled employees, and offering a part of the ransom as a bounty or an award to kind of, infiltrate into an organization. But thanks for your insights, Abhishek. I'll just move on to Manish and then Gagan and Rajesh. I'll come to you in the last. Please bear with me. But Manish, your thoughts? Ransomware is just one class of attacks. Are there any other incidents that you've come across and you would like to share your views on some of the things that financial institutions need to watch out for?
In my opinion, hi, first of all, thank you very much, Karthik, for having me here, and thanks to all the panelists as well. uh, in my opinion, if you ask me, well, ransomware, of course, that has been one of the biggest threats that's been there. But then you need to look into things like, for example, wherein so the landscape has completely changed. Earlier, it was just me managing my internal network and managing my endpoints and all. Now, what has happened is because of the pandemic situation and all, everybody is connecting in from everywhere. So, trying to understand first of all what is my threat landscape. Identity is the your new perimeter. So it's something like, for example, the attacks have changed. Even those hackers, I can give you examples. Something like, for example, when you talk about financial industry, it's like attackers have started using different types of attacks. So it's not only the ransomware. When you talk about banking industry, it's like, say, for example, they are able to get, say, a particular type of, they come to know a few of the user IDs, right? So this is a trend which I saw recently, which is happening across, is basically they get these few user IDs, and on the basis of those user IDs, they try to see what could be the next user ID, in a sequence. And then what they would do is they would use those basic combinations. So something like, for example, and this is not, we're talking about people sitting abroad. These are the people who are sitting in this Jamtara places and all that. What they have been able to identify, or what they are able to do nowadays, is basically get the user ID, look into the profile of the people. Say, for example, if at all, you come to know of it that the particular person might be having. So it's not a particular bank which they're talking about. It's the ID, your date of birth, probably the place where you live, and then what they would do is they would actually kind of run a bot or something like that, and try and put in those username password combinations. So something like, for example, people usually do not keep the password just something which is very secure kinds and all that. People, as far as when you talk about small finance banks and all, we are the ones who are serving the rural industries, the rural places and all. Over there, a person might be having an account as something like, say ABC. Now ABC and the password could be ABC 1970. Things like that. And then you might be adding some kind of, okay, fine, one particular combination is there, and then I might add a particular character, maybe at the rate or a dollar sign and all. What these people are doing nowadays, they are trying to find out what is the sequence of login IDs which a particular bank account or a bank has. And then they try with all these basic password combinations along with it. And they will do 2 password validations in a day. Yeah, brute force kind of a thing. And then they will do it on the next day. So the account doesn't get logged out. As soon as one hit gets kinds of authenticated, the first thing they do is go ahead and change the password, the email ID in that, and the mobile number. And then after that, they start doing some kind of transactions also. This is basically one of the other types of attacks which is happening in the banking industry these days.
Yeah. No, Manish, I think, and that circles back to the point that Rajesh made around some of these advanced attack, and while we feel that these are advanced attacks and they're difficult to detect, and that's why they're called advanced. But the root cause is usually the traditional methods of weak passwords, unrestricted access.
Exactly. I believe in it that you do 80% of the attacks can be controlled if you do your basics right.
Absolutely. So I'll just move on to Gagan and ask him more from a digital perspective, his views around what initiatives he's been taking from an overall, when you look at the overall digital landscape. How do you embed some of these measures into your products or channels that you might be upcoming with, right, as initiatives? And what is your thought process around mitigating some of these cyber risks, Manish? Gagan, sorry.
Yeah. Thanks, Karthik, and hello to all panelists. I hope I am audible.
Yes, Gagan, absolutely.
So I'm not fully from the background of security and internet security, but I will probably give a more novice or a general view of a user side, whatever I have learned. So I think a lot of the concepts Rajesh, Abhishek, and even Manish has covered in detail, and yourself. From a person, I have owned business, PNL, as well as looking at technology. So I was just trying to, one thing I've seen that we do not employ the same quality of teams for trying out hacking on our own systems, which I think most of us employ, as good as the externals are. Right? So what happens because of whatever reasons, because of what, maybe we cannot, there's no right of way of saying what is the best, because I've been from that background of hacking and run this, I've been a computer science graduate. I had hackers who are my friends, right? So there is no right and wrong, and there's no best quality. But what happens that we are always caught up in costs, maybe we are always caught up in some other similar things. So what happens, the people from the outside who are trying various things, be it a user level, be it a simple password level, or DDoS, or any of those attacks, they have more incentive to do it, while the team who at our end who's trying their best to save it don't have enough incentive to do it well. Right? So we never do our own hacking as well. Right? That is one thing I think which I have always seen at a slightly more 30,000 feet level I am speaking, but this has been the case in my view. Second is I have seen one thing working well as a user level is that in one of my previous firms there were enough phishing mails being sent by the internal team, and they were doing a really good job. Right? I know many good people, including myself, getting caught by, even though I'm supposedly myself considered, I used to consider myself an expert, that I will never get caught by a phishing email, but I was caught. Right? They did really well. And whenever you get caught, then you are taken through a huge pain of one full day out and so on, and taken through a very bad training. So now everybody started trying to learn it better. Right? So as Rajesh also said that suddenly on weekend everybody worked the moment they had an issue, right? So we will really need to get the users. We need to really do a very good job of getting the user, because user endpoint is the biggest issue all of us know, right? And the simple attacks is the bigger issue, right? But user endpoints, because everybody is running after sales and business. The whole industry, everybody in BFS is running after sales and business. So getting people to really be serious about this, it's almost like security versus business, right? They're always in fight, right? Not in collaboration. So we'll have to find ways, slightly more EQ ways, slightly more better ways through using better teams internally also, who are not only CISO experts or security experts, but who also know how to now translate that to people, to make sure people understand, and either through fear or through various measures, the way I told one measure, right? And then we are able to probably get all of these things, and 80% goes away. Then 20% is easy, because then the really back-end security experts can handle the 20%, right? So that is one thing I've seen. So the way you get your users on board is something where you need more EQ than the knowledge of security. And I think we have to employ better teams to hack. We have very good teams to implement security, but we obviously need to have very good teams who try to hack our own security, fairly independent, highly paid, maybe they are also external teams employed by us, right? And they try to hack ourselves, and they are something we can trust. Right? So that has to become better. Rest of it, I think all of us know what EDR is, what all the technologies that we are discussing. Yeah.
Sure. No, absolutely, Gagan. I hear you, and maybe I'll go to Rajesh from Juniper and maybe quiz him in terms of all that he's heard from a Juniper perspective, from a product and solutions perspective. What's the landscape that he's looking at? Are all of these solutions the silver bullet, or is there something that users and organizations need to take care of when when looking at all of these points, whether it is a ransomware attack or moving on to a new cloud infrastructure, perimeter being opened. So your thoughts, Rajesh, on that?
Sure, Karthik. Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. I heard about all the esteemed speakers talking about the security threats, hacking. So when we talk about that, right, one is what I feel, to be very frank, is that some of the things, as Rajesh sir or Gangan, whoever spoke about in terms of people, process, technology, all that has to be in place, because the basic hygiene has to be taken care, right? And the second is when you use the technology today. When we talk to our customers, what they say is perimeter there or perimeter less is what we are looking at, because the complexity has so much increased in the networks today, because customers are going towards multi-cloud environment, they're going towards virtualization, they're adding more devices, they're adding users, apps, applications, IoT, right? It is just not the hacking. If you look at their networks becoming so complex, so that is also relating it to ultimately to the enemy of what I can call it as a effective security, correct? Because this much of complexity, how do I handle it? So what we feel is that when you look at a lot of surveys done by Gartner, for example, in 2019-2020, the Gartner report says that security spending is almost 130 to 140 billion by the customers, but this security devices which have been procured are in silos, right? So they are not into deep collaboration or being not orchestrated across the entire parts of the network. That means when I say entire parts of the network, is it should not be only related to one of the segment, like it's only not at the security. It should be able to integrate, orchestrate, and automate everything in terms of the network, security, switches, Wi-Fi, everything together. So that is where when we talk about, I don't want to put that into picture, but when we look at Juniper, we talk about something known as a connected security. What we say is that when you have a connected security, there is, when this ransomware attack happens or something which happens, then there is a lateral movement as well as a top-down movement. You don't know which movement that ransomware is going to attack and who is going to get a malicious file downloaded, how he is going to interact with others, whether it's a lateral or whether it's a top-down, right? Because you may have a firewalls, you may have a security mechanisms in a north-south direction, but you may not have anything in the lateral dimension. So with those kind of like there is a lot of way the traffic pattern, the network, it goes on. So in that perspective, so what connected security gives you is a lot of capabilities to identify this lateral as well as visibility, deep down visibility into end-to-end and top-down approach, right? For example, in connected security, we have something known as a ATP cloud. Under the ATP cloud, we have multiple factors like SecIntel. Then we have actually adaptive threat analysis. For example, if someone user password is being used and passwords are being typed again and again, we can look at something known as a repetitive engine. And then we can look at something known as a behavioral analysis, right? Why this is happening? Why particular user ID or host is being bombarded with so many times of passwords, or multi-factor authentication being touched upon, right? So when you look at these kind of activities, so there are certain ways to look at from the technology in terms of using, there are also feeds across the globe today, which is known as SecIntel, where you can gather it. That is a curated one, and you can act upon it in terms of what is that the threat vector you want to define to your organization, and dynamically you can push those policies to your entire network. So what I say is predictive analysis, right? And having using these kind of technologies, having to end with a better collaboration, orchestration, automated across the network. It is not just one. It can be firewall, it can be router, it can be a switch, it can be because DDoS attack starts with the gateway. If your router has the capabilities to have this DDoS kind of functionality, then it will stop the DDoS attacks. But when it gets inside, you can look at the ATP advanced threat or a SecIntel mechanisms, and then also push the host out of the network. So that gives you the key capability that the host is not there in the network. That means you have already isolated your network from the threat which you are going to have it, right? So, and also in security, always there is one big term, right? How fast you can bounce back. That is key. So it may be an attack, but how fast you can bounce back, how fast you can identify that and bounce back is this some of this connected security, some of these technologies which will give you in terms of identifying, throwing the host out of the network, and then managing it in terms of isolation, and then looking at a lot of sandboxing solutions are there, right? So you can do a sandboxing solutions. You can see whether ransomware, because in an email there may be an attachment where we can do a sandboxing solution and find out exactly, or there may be a trigger which is sitting silent. So that can go to a sandboxing and we can trigger it. We can build that behavioral characteristics so that it can trigger that and find out what the issue is. So these are some of the technologies which are available. But at the end of the day, as rightly said, with all this, security needs to have some process, people being understanding the basic things, and then hygiene. That will help us to even better make the security possible in terms of the effective security, what I talk about.
Well, thanks, Rajesh. I think that helps, and thanks for your points and insights there. And I see Manoj also on the call, and Manoj, I hope you can hear us.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon,
Yeah.
everybody. I'm sorry, since I'm traveling, so I'm joining this call from my car.
No problem. As long as you're not the one driving it,
Not driving.
it should be good. All right, Manoj. I just wanted to pick your thoughts on the and coming on to the next section around how do we detect and mechanisms around analytics and AI which have been introduced in the industry. I know a lot of products have this star stamp on which says analytics and EY enabled and AI enabled. So what's your thought on that, and have you seen some success in this space, and if you have personally seen some of these solutions, would be great to have your insight.
Yeah, thanks. So before I answer to you, I would like to thank for the wonderful thoughts by all the speakers. I just want to add one or two more things there. See, one thing is very sure that there are two risks. How I see one, the attacker, they may have my data, and number two, whatever data I have, it may be encrypted. So one point is very sure that whatever data I have, the confidentiality has to be maintained. So encryption of the data in rest is also very important. Even if it has gone out to the hacker, the right information should not be available to the hacker. That is one more important thing I would like to add. And answering to your question, there are a lot of products where I were going through demo of one of the company. I don't want to name that. It detects ransomware attack, and within 2 or 3 minutes it recreate VMs and start working fine. It all depends in detection mechanism, where we are, how our infrastructure is. Are we on cloud? Are we on multi-cloud? Or are we on completely on-prem? Depending upon the current infrastructure we have, we should have right mechanism to detect. Of course, SOC is not capable enough. I would like to say that SOC is not capable to detect these kind of or very sophisticated ransomware attacks. The data flow or the what I say, micro segmentation, that kind of thing will give us very good visibility on that.
Sure.
And,
Sure.
a lot of historical analysis should also be there. Like if I have a trend of maybe daily 100 GB or 100 MB data transfer within this much of time, if something is going high, why there should be some kind of suspicious thing. So efficient operations is also very important.
No, absolutely. Thanks, Manoj, for your views. And I see while we are running out of time, I just wanted to do a quick time check with our host. Bhumi, are we good for the questions, or?
We have last 2 minutes left for the session.
Okay, all right. So I'll just raise one more point and would love to know your views on this one. And it's all about cloud. And while the journey or the adoption of cloud is inevitable, and while the entire financial services sector was a bit skeptical, and so was the regulator. But now that we see increasing adoption of cloud, do you see, and this question is open to the panelists, to all the panelists, and would love to know your views as to what are the two things that you see are going to be increasingly challenging in terms of, while we cannot stop the move to cloud, the two things that you will do to really make sure that the security is not compromised. And please feel free to chip in.
Yeah, I'll probably go with that.
Rajesh, you want to go first?
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
So it would be difficult to pinpoint two things, either on the for or against, because there's a long list of which the leadership and the technology verticals are ready to pump in: productivity, cost, a lot of logistic issues, people, resources which has to be managed, capacity. So a lot of to and fors for it. Against, again, there's a long list of things. But as you said, it is inevitable. This journey is inevitable. Cloud is there to stay, and we all want it to be there. What is it that we should be careful of? If I have to pick two key things, I think one is data. When you are, end of the day, all that hacker, everybody is looking for the data, meet stuff there. So that can be a PII, SPDI, transactional, whatever it is. So that's do anything that you do around the life cycle of data, right from the source or from your on-prem systems to what it is sent to, how the data is kept at rest, how the data is encrypted in motion, how the keys are handled. That entire leg of data protection is very important. Second, and with that comes in compliance, localizations, and data resiliency, and all that stuff. So data world has 20 other things tagged to it. Second thing which I feel is most important for us as CISOs is the visibility. Because moment it leaves you, if it is in cloud, your visibility actually is supposed to come down. So for a CISO, I mean, my biggest fear has always been unknown unknowns. I don't know what I don't know. If I don't know, what will I fix? So when I leave things to the cloud, I mean, I'm relying too much on the CSP, the cloud service provider, and in the contract, he says it's a shared responsibility. Where does that end? Where does it start for me? How do I know what's happening at my perimeter? How does it know what is happening in the infrastructure that is hosted there? How does I know what is happening? The workload protection, the access, how is it getting rendered? Most of the breaches that have happened is around access management, authentications, and all that stuff. The key rotation has not been there, keyword data was not encrypted, or a misconfiguration happened. All this is summarized as word visibility. So these two, to me, are the most important things. While there can be a long session of discussion on each one of them, but yeah, if you say two things against it, I think these two are the more important, not against, but key considerations that a CISO should always keep in mind before he takes or supports his organization to move to the cloud.
Thanks, Rajesh. Who would like to go next? Abhishek, maybe you or Manish?
I can add to the list. Sorry, Manish, I just pitched in. So again, adding to the list what Rajesh mentioned, I think he gets the first mover advantage and he explains it very well. So I'll just add on to the list. I think baseline hardening is the key, because misconfiguration and this is the key element which has been observed in any kind of attack which has happened so far within cloud as well. So again, baseline hardening and monitoring of those. I'll just allude to what Rajesh from Juniper kind of added in terms of east-west traffic. This is a nuanced area. This becomes really challenging when it comes to cloud. So from a security standpoint, I definitely see these two as the focus areas which I'll kind of latch on, especially when it comes to implementing a cloud security framework. In addition to it, this is not particularly pertaining to a direct security threat, but I would like to keep a high focus on portability. Right? Whenever organizations are latching on to their cloud journeys, they are actually skewed towards AWS or Azure or GCP, right? So rather than that, maybe try and see if you can actually have portability. I mean, there are ways and means to use Terraform and likewise, but portability is going to be the key, so that what we used to do as control with, if I may say, for smaller vendors as escrow arrangements, right, can put you to task when it comes to big vendors as well. When your entire set of workloads and your IT is with single shop. So these are 2-3 things which I would like to add to Rajesh's list. Otherwise, it's very comprehensive.
Thanks, Abhishek. Manish, are you going next? While I'll just check if.
Hi. Well, they've already added everything, but according to me, one thing which an organization should look into is that, say, for example, when you are going to select a particular cloud service provider, you need to look into, this as well, that what are the basic processes which they have in place? Something like, say, for example, do they do a background verification of the employees which they hire to do the actual work for them? So do they do that? And is it a very stringent process? Then what about the testings which they have? Is it like they conduct a test on a regular basis? Is it a continuous compliance kind of a thing? Or is it like, they also conduct these kinds of VAPTs and AppSecs, whatever they want to do on a, say, for example, some set frequency, cloud, 6 monthly or quarterly or things like that. Yeah, so adding on to the list, I can say these two things could also be looked into.
Sure, Manish, thank you. And I'm getting messages from the host that we are a little over time. One of you for your valuable time and some great inputs and insights that we've shared on the topic today. I know it's a vast topic and we could keep this discussion on for the entire day and still be left with points not discussed and not satisfied with all the discussion that we had. But fun interacting with all of you and thank you so much in this session and making this session more lively and useful for the audience. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Karthik, for the awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.